Hey everybody, welcome to our DT sharing.
Good morning.
All right, so we're going to be jumping into today's text, which is 1 John. And I highlighted a few words already. I think the word that stands out the most is world. And this word is cosmos, and I think we're familiar with it because of Satan and his kingdom. As McCollum talks about it. And I was thinking about how we're not to love the world or the things in the world. This world is the world system and the way the world works. And he further goes on to describe in verse 16 that what is in the world? It's the desires of the flesh, it's the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life. And I was thinking often we think of desires of the flesh, these very carnal things, and evil, wicked. And I think they are the one evil, sex, drugs, cheating, pornography, and the like. And it's definitely included in those things. But I also think it's more than that, and it's a lot subtler. It's a lot more subtle in today. And it's, I think, our desires for comfort and our desires for nice things, nice homes, spending time with our spouse and significant others. And see, the danger here, though, is that those things of themselves are not necessarily evil or bad, but it's that they can begin to replace our desire for God. We begin to want those things exclusively over the things of God. Dennis McCullum puts it this way in his book, Satan's Kingdom. He says, here's a quote, many of the same Christians, however, would never recognize the world system when looking at the Harvard University green or the Sears Tower, a glossy magazine advertisement showing a family luxuriating in a hot tub in Tahiti or a shiny new SUV would not ring the cosmos bell in their minds. But that's how we get into it. And I think what's really underneath this is how Satan works. And he sells us a vision of life through lies, saying, hey, if you only get these things will make you happy. There will be a source of significance of life for you. And that's what displaces God, because God is the one who should have that place in our lives.
So I think just to expand on what he means by the desires and what's wrong with those things. Why does he say that if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him? So God created desires. So desires in and of themselves are not bad, but they're not inherently evil. It's just that when our human desires become twisted and not directed by or toward God, that's what he's talking about. So when it says desires of the flesh, it's a corruption of our desires. And the NIV calls it lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and I think that kind of makes it more clear. It's a perversion and it's twisted. So, and it's apart from God. And I think when it says desires of the eyes, it kind of he's talking about looking. It's a pathway to sin. Our eyes become a pathway to sin. And it's similar to like the story of Lot, where he's described as he looked up and he saw, and then same with Eve, who saw the fruit, and what it became a pathway into their sin. And so it's a vision of life apart from God. And then when it talks about pride of life, what does that mean? It's just talking about taking significance in something apart from God. And so I was just reminded of what it says in Matthew 6:24. And it says, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. And I think from this verse, it makes it clear that these two things are mutually exclusive. And why is that the case? I mean, you can interchange the word money with something else that you might be seeking. For example, you could say you cannot serve God and your own sense of freedom. You cannot serve God and leisure and comfort. You cannot serve God and career. And so, and I think when it says you cannot serve God and money, I think it when you really think about what money represents, it represents significance, it represents security, it represents, a vision of life. And clearly those things are opposed to what God is supposed to be giving us, because God promises those things. So you can't pursue both. So I think when you think about it like that, you realize, these two things are mutually exclusive.
Lastly, I think in the final verse, in verse 17, where it says, "And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever." I think the idea here really, very clearly, is just that the world and everything with it passes away. It brings into light what does last, what is going to last beyond the things of this world, the objects, the things that can win the affection of our heart. Like those things do not last. The only thing that lasts is God's word and people. And so then, if we're going to do the will of God that abides forever, what is that will of God? What does He desire more than anything? Is that all men be saved? it says in First Timothy. So, First Peter, that's what he wants, is for people to be saved and to abide in his will, to not live in the world, but to see the world as a place for us to redeem lost souls. And that's what lasts forever, is our souls. And so that's where he wants us to invest our lives, not in these temporary things, but in eternal things. I think that's challenging for us, especially during the time of COVID, where we can easily get caught up in our desires for comfort in this world and have to zoom out and see the bigger picture of our dying world. So, do that.
Mhm. I think another application is that we really have to be careful about what we allow ourselves to be fed and what we look at, because it's talking about the desires of the eyes and the flesh. And we have to realize that the images that we see, it is feeding us a message of a certain vision of life. And that's what we have to be able to discern. And another implication is that we have to meditate on what's true. What is true? It's that there is an eternal reality, and that's something we have to keep remembering. That the world is going to pass away. All these images that are fed and that we see, those things are going to pass away. And so, when we think about it like that, we realize, yeah, I mean, we should not invest in those things because there is an eternity. And so, these are some things that I think we have to think about in terms of how we're going to live and apply this verse to our lives. Okay,
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.